Hi, my name is Dennis McWilliams, and I'm the CEO of Apollo Endosurgery. We're a flexible surgical device company based in Austin, Texas. And I would like to thank ERCAD for the opportunity to speak to you guys today and tell you the story of Apollo Endosurgery, Inc., and a group of surgeons and gastroenterologists who decided they wanted to change the world of surgery. And so hopefully through this story, I can give you guys a sense of what it's like to do a startup company, some of the key elements that are involved, and some of the ups and downs involved with pursuing these types of dreams. So let's advance the slide. I always like to start with this quote by Georges Doriot. He's one of the earliest venture capitalists who was making investments in the space. And he said, always remember that someone somewhere is making a product that will make your product obsolete. And I think that's a very telling quote, particularly as it relates to the medical device industry. If you think about surgical devices and how they've changed over the past 20 years, I think we've seen tremendous changes. A lot of the devices that were the market leaders at that time, have now passed away and have been replaced by newer, more innovative tools. And so I think as you think about building your companies and building your startups, just realize how competitive the space is and how much change is ongoing, because I think it's a good lesson for us all as we, go to create these companies and to protect and grow them. Next slide. I think it's important when we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about wanting to start companies that we're clear on definitions. And I think everybody's aware that actually entrepreneur is French, and is French for undertake. And this is a person who organizes, operates, and assumes the risk for a business venture. If you advance, though, you'll see, I think, a more apt definition, an important definition, if you click the advance, is that of, can you go ahead and advance the slide? Is that of masochist. And this is Austrian, actually, and it's an individual with a willingness or tendency to subject themselves to unpleasant or trying experiences. I think both of these definitions are apt for the subjects that we talk about today, mainly because starting a company from scratch from your ideas is a very exciting prospect, but at times a very trying and painful process as well. But hopefully in the end, many of you will be inspired by this story and other stories and hope to change the world yourselves. Next slide. So given the pains and the ups and downs, why do we do this? Why start a company? I would say most entrepreneurs is the ability to control your own destiny. If you've worked in large companies before or large organizations, oftentimes you feel that either one, you can't create your own success, nor do you really have an impact on the overall success or failure of the venture. And I think in a startup, it's the exact opposite. Every individual in a startup is critical to the success of the company and the vision. And so I think having that ability of self-control, while yes, it leads to more ups and downs and roller coaster rides, is an exciting way to control your own career in your own destiny. I think there are a few other advantages. For myself personally, I really like working in a team environment. As well as unlimited variety of tasks. Every day is different in a startup company. One day you're working on a new product with some surgeons who are very excited about what you're doing. The next day you're working with financial auditors. So it's a pretty wide breadth of things, some good, some not as fun, but the variation and variety makes it an exciting career. Obviously, one of the reasons people do this is for the opportunity for significant return. But I think you'll see as you look at other startups and the success rate of these things, they are challenging. And if you're only doing it for financial return, you're going to be ultimately, I think, in the end, disappointed. Next slide. So I think it's great to start with the concept of commercialization. And again, we'll start tying this to the story of Apollo Endosurgery in a little bit because I think we're an interesting example of that. But this is a highly simplified slide that really outlines kind of the three major things that go from idea to market. When you have a new idea for a product, ultimately the goal of that idea is to be able to get that product to the marketplace, to the customer. In the case of medical devices, that customer is the surgeon who ultimately uses your device to treat a patient. And so the process of commercialization or turning your ideas into products is one that encompasses this whole range of activity from the ideal conception standpoint all the way through the regulatory approvals and the commercialization of your product. For Apollo, it's been multiple years. It's been 5 years since we first started the company. The first ideas, the first concepts of the surgeons and gastroenterologists who had the vision for our products actually happened over 14 years ago. So you can see it can be a very long and complicated process. But here I really just wanted to highlight some of the key aspects of each of these areas. So when you think about your idea, again, an idea for a product, an idea for a new drug, an idea for a new procedure, if you're truly interested in commercializing this and turning your idea into a product for a financial return, one of the most important things you can focus on is the patents. So, the intellectual property is the asset that keeps other people from taking your idea, but also more importantly gives you effectively title to the idea so you can transfer that title for gain to different companies, investor groups, and such. And so as you think about the patents, it's always really important to make sure you fully understand the patent landscape of the space that you're in, and not only your ability to protect those patents, but your ability to make sure you're not infringing on other people's ideas. I think that's become a more complicated and important space today. So in 1998, there was a group of gastroenterologists and actually one surgeon who had a vision to change the world. And they called themselves the Apollo Group. And you'll see a slide here that shows them a little bit later. But if you click the slide, advance, they had a vision to turn the flexible endoscope, which is a device that is well known by many. It's a device that, frankly, hasn't changed much over the past 20 to 30 or even 40 years, other than the addition of higher grade visual imaging. But your ability to add therapy really hasn't changed much. So if you advance the slide, their vision was to turn this flexible endoscope into a true surgical platform. So that when you were a physician, you had a flexible scope, you were visualizing a problem in a patient's gastroenterology GI tract, you would have the ability to treat that as opposed to trying to refer them to a more invasive surgical procedure. Next slide. So this is the Apollo Group. Again, 7 gastroenterologists, 1 surgeon. Really the grandfather of, as to speak of, therapeutic endoscopy, Peter Cotton, was really the brainchild of pulling the group together and recruited Chris Gostout from the Mayo Clinic, Rob Hawes from MUSC in Charleston, Sergey Kansovoy, who was at Johns Hopkins at the time, Tony Kalu, who I know has done multiple ERCAD lectures and really was the pioneer of the concept of notes, was also one of the original co-founders of the group, along with Jay Pasricha, who's now chief of gastroenterology at Stanford, but at the time was at the University of Texas, and then Sidney Chung, who was the lone surgeon of the group and was at Chinese University of Hong Kong at the time. So these 7 individuals had this vision, and they wanted to find a way to change the world of flexible endoscopy. And so they decided to work together. And if you click the next slide, they did something very interesting. And that was to create a multi-institutional partnership and license so that these physicians, when they were at these schools, and again, in the United States, if you have an invention and you work at a university, the university actually owns your patents and your ideas. So they convinced those universities to pool the ideas together so that if Tony Kalu at the Mayo Clinic or Tony Kalu at Johns Hopkins had a concept that he wanted to explore with Christoph Gostout of the Mayo Clinic, they had an agreement in place that would allow them to manage that discussion and that partnering, but also simplify the process of partnering that technology out so they could go ahead and commercialize it. And you see that on the bottom, Olympus Corporation provided the actual initial funding and partnership to drive the Apollo Group forward. And really was the organization that provided the financial capital to allow this to grow and allowed the Apollo Group to continue to explore their ideas, build prototypes, and even start doing pilot clinical work.